But we begin with President Trump continuing to outright question the patriotism of 4 minority Democratic congresswomen whom he told to go back to their countries, declaring them irredeemable, and now to destroy the United States. Trump tweeted Sunday morning, quote, "I don't believe the 4 congresswomen are capable of loving our country. They should apologize to America and Israel for the horrible, hateful things they have said. They are destroying the Democrat Party, but are weak and insecure people who can never destroy our great nation." Also this weekend, President Trump shared a defense of the send her back tweets from a far-right British commentator who in the past linked a rabbi's pro-migrant work to the mass shooting at a synagogue in Pittsburgh. On Saturday, Trump shared a tweet by Katie Hopkins, who wrote in part, "Send her back is the new lock her up." Trump also shared 3 other tweets by Hopkins, who, after a terrorist attack in May of 2017 at an Ariana Grande concert in Manchester, England, tweeted, "We need a final solution, Manchester." And who, after the mass shooting last year at the Tree of Life Synagogue that left 11 people dead, wrote, "Look to the chief rabbi and his support for mass migration across the Med. There you will find your truths." It is unclear whether Trump was aware of the background of Hopkins. The White House did not respond to the New York Times request for comment. And so, meanwhile, in a move reminiscent of his flip-flopping on statements on the racist violence in Charlottesville, Virginia, back in 2017, President Trump pulled back from criticism of his rally for his rally-goers chanting "Send her back" about Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. The president declined to call the chant racist or even stand by his claim on Thursday that he was not happy with it.
President Trump, you were unhappy with the chant. However, the chant was just repeated.
No, you know what I'm unhappy with? You know what I'm unhappy with? I'm unhappy with the fact that a congresswoman can hate our country. That's what I'm unhappy with. Those people in North Carolina, that stadium was packed. It was a record crowd, and I could have filled it 10 times, as you know. Those are incredible people. Those are incredible patriots. But I'm unhappy when a congresswoman goes and said, "I'm going to be the president's nightmare." She's going to be the president's nightmare. She's lucky to be where she is. Say it.
The chant "Send her home."
No, you know what's racist to me? When somebody goes out and says the horrible things about our country, the people of our country, that are anti-Semitic, that hate everybody, that speak with scorn and hate, that, to me, is really a very dangerous thing.
Listen, I agree completely, and I'm glad that Donald Trump is finally into self-confession because, of course, we know he said several anti-Semitic things throughout his political career. Of course, I remember back during the heat of the campaign, the presidential campaign, he sent out an anti-racist tweet, retweeted one with Hillary Clinton with dollar signs, talking about her being controlled by Jewish money. And my gosh, all the hatred that he spewed out about America, talking about American carnage, and talking about the American dream being dead, and on, saying America was crippled. I was deeply offended by that. I am glad that Donald Trump finally is reflecting and understands that his sort of language is just not acceptable anymore. Jonathan Lemire, it's not like this isn't as predictable as the Red Sox losing 2 out of 3 to the Baltimore Orioles in an important stretch. And I guess, you know what? Listen, we won a World Series last year, so why in the hell would we want to win one again this year? Good job, Dombrowski. Great pitchers. I'm sorry, that's all I'll say there. But while we were watching the Red Sox blow the game, we were actually talking, this was Friday, I guess. We were predicting what was going to happen. That, like Charlottesville, he condemns and then he backs up. And then he condemns and he backs up and backs up. He did exactly what you said he was going to do this weekend, just like he did with Charlottesville. And it reminds me also of right before Super Tuesday when he said he would not condemn the Ku Klux Klan because he knew nothing about them, didn't know David Duke. And then he said it was an earpiece. And then I mean, this is what he does all the time. But he usually ends up on the most racist position possible. And that's what he's done here, too. And by the way, he's turned it up. He's turned it up a notch. The racism and the hatred and the nativism and the xenophobia. Make no mistake, this isn't just this isn't Groundhog's Day. This is a new level of racism and hatred. Brought to you by Donald Trump and the Republicans who enable him.
All right, the president's use of the word nightmare there certainly could be applied to the Red Sox pitching staff, Joe, but we'll set that aside.
Yes, certainly could.
You're right. We spoke a few days ago and sort of saw this coming. It's very similar to what he did in Charlottesville. Let's flash back to August 2017. In the hours after Charlottesville, he spoke at his golf course at Bedminster and blamed the violence on people on both sides of that altercation. After 24, 48 hours of a media firestorm about it, I was part of the traveling press pool during that stretch. They whisked us to the White House, taking him off of his vacation so he could give a statement there from the White House with the backdrop of the grand setting there, and saying that, you know, it was a much more measured teleprompter reading, saying that no, of course, you know, he condemned the white supremacists. Only the very next day, again, after watching the media coverage of the flip-flop, after hearing from Republicans who expressed concern, but also those who didn't, noting who was talking, who wasn't, consulting his informal advisors after hours, suddenly held a press conference at Trump Tower and went back to his original position. Because there's one thing that this president hates to be seen as doing, and that's caving to pressure. The idea of that he is responding to what other people are upset about, that whether it's lawmakers and media commentators. He cannot handle the idea of look like he's been pushed into a corner. He returns to his first instinct, and we saw that here again. Look, we've all seen the video clip from the rally from North Carolina. He did nothing to stop that chant. He soaked in the chant. Only after some concern expressed by Republicans, after watching some of the media, he walked it back. He sort of expressed that he wished that chant hadn't happened. But then he ended up back where he started. First of all, we know he doesn't ever want to criticize his base, and he was clearly concerned that it looked like he was criticizing the rally-goers in North Carolina. That's first and foremost. He doesn't want to ever upset them, but he also doesn't want to be seen as giving in. And he also, as a final point, still wants to have this fight. He still wants to make these congresswomen of color be his opposition, be his foil for now, eventually to the Democratic nominee. But right now, he wants to have this white identity racial fight, and that tweet, the tweet yesterday, the language that's really striking is this. He said, I don't believe the 4 congresswomen are capable of loving our country. Well, Mr. President, what makes them, Mr. President, what makes them not capable? That's the question.
Well, they're not white. First of all, it clearly is suggesting that they're not white. They're foreign, even though they're not. And also very interesting in that presser. When the president said they're just lucky to be where they are. That's Donald Trump saying, you know what, given that they're women and they're from Somalia or they're from wherever, Detroit, or they're from Cincinnati, regardless, they're just lucky to be where they are. So, Eddie, I want to read you something from Gary Kasparov. And he wrote a column yesterday, and it was really important because he said, I've been warning you guys since 2016. This is what totalitarians do, and they keep amping it up bit by bit. And Gary's exactly right. This is taking it to a new level. But he said in his column for the New York Daily News, Trump feeds the mob, and the mob feeds Trump. Demagogues don't find radicals to lead. They radicalize their followers, one outrage at a time. And as Mr. Kasparov wrote, Donald Trump is taking them even farther now. And every time they don't respond, every time they don't condemn, it becomes normalized and then allows him to go one step further with his racism, one step further with his demagoguery, one step further with his xenophobia. And it appears that that's exactly what is happening here.
Joe, I think I read that piece, and I think he was right on point. And in some ways, he's pointing us to the fact that the problem isn't just Donald Trump. The problem involves at least those who are silent, who are complicit in their silence, those who are complacent in their criticism. That there are a host of factors that allow for this moment that we are in. It's not only the bombast and the demagoguery and the racism of Donald Trump, it's also the ways in which the Republican Party, the ways in which the political process, whether it's consultants or the Democratic Party, the way in which we're managing it and responding or not responding to what's happening. Donald Trump wants to have this fight, and it seems to me that we ought to have it. We have to finally, Joe, and I've been saying this over and over again, we have to finally rid ourselves of this undertow, right, of this undercurrent in our politics. And Donald Trump has, in some ways, given us an opportunity, but we're tiptoeing, some of us at least. We need to attack it.
Yes.
And then I think this is really important. Donald Trump and Stephen Miller on the Sunday shows yesterday, they ran out this line, that the racist are those who are calling people racist, that we're using the label to beat people over their head. And this is a kind of echo of George Wallace's old formulation, the bigots are those who are calling people bigots, right? They're trying to police how we respond to what they're doing. He wants to have this fight, Joe. We need to have it. We need to have it once and for all.
And you know, Mika, it didn't work on Fox News. Chris Wallace actually said to Stephen Miller, the president is fanning the flames of racism.
Yeah, we'll get to Stephen Miller in just a moment, but let's take a look at this. President Trump is accusing 4 Democratic House members of having hate for the United States, but he is making false claims in an attempt to back up that allegation, including this reference to Congresswoman Ilhan Omar of Minnesota.
They can't talk about evil Jews, which is what they say, evil Jews.
Yet Omar never said evil Jews.
Of course.
And those are the words tweeted by RNC spokeswoman Elizabeth Harrington, who highlighted an Omar tweet during the deadly 2012 conflict between Israel and Gaza, in which Omar called the violence, quote, the evil doings of Israel. Omar has since deleted that tweet and others that were condemned for their rhetoric. And in February, Omar unequivocally apologized for past statements, saying she was learning from Jewish colleagues about the painful history of anti-Semitic tropes. The president also made this claim about Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
When they call our country garbage, think of that. That's worse than deplorable. When they call our country garbage, I don't care about politics.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. This guy, first of all, that was a lie.
Horrible.
He's a liar. He's lied there. But this is a guy that called America, quote, crippled.
Yeah.
His inaugural speech
It's horrendous.
was not ask not what you can do for your country can do for you. Ask me. It wasn't that. It was American carnage, talking about the crime, despite the fact crime was at a 50-year low, talking about that we don't even have borders, despite the fact that illegal crossings under Barack Obama, 50-year low, and they've skyrocketed up under Donald Trump. He said the American dream was dead. He said we were stupid. He said all of our leaders were stupid. This is a man who his entire adult life has trashed the United States of America for 40 years. Now listen, Trump supporters, go to the Google machine next door. All right. Later, when your neighbors are awake, I'll tell you what, get some Sanka crystals. Put them in a coffee cup. I know you don't have running hot water because if you don't have a Google machine, you don't have running hot water.
The president says
go next door
backward.
and say, hey, I got some Sanka crystals. Give me a little hot water. I'll stir it up even for you, and I'll use your Google machine. And then look on the Google machine, and you will see that for 40 years, Donald Trump has been trashing the United States of America, saying the American dream was dead, even when he was president, talking about American carnage.
Okay.
So who is this guy to say that you cannot criticize the United States of America when that is all, Mika, he has been doing for 40 years.
But AOC didn't call the United States garbage. Here she is back in March talking about why she says her policy agenda is not extreme.
We've strayed so far away from what has really made us powerful and just and good and equitable and productive. And so I think all of these things sound radical compared to where we are, but where we are is not a good thing. And this idea of like 10% better from garbage shouldn't be what we settle for.
You know, by the way, Mika, she talked about America being powerful and just, but said that Donald Trump's policies were garbage. I know there are millions of Americans who feel the same way, not calling Americans garbage.
No.
But Donald Trump, and this is a problem, we're going to talk about this more this morning, Mika, Donald Trump, like all dictators, like all fascists, like all whatever, I'm not saying he is one, my friends. I'm not saying he is one, my friends. Okay? Stir that Sanka and just relax. I'm just saying, though, read the Kasparov article, and what you're going to find is that dictators, not Donald Trump, but dictators, will associate themselves with the countries. Yeah. So if you criticize the dictator, if you criticize the fascist, if you criticize the autocrat, then they say you're criticizing the country itself. That's what Donald Trump is doing. Of course, he's not a fascist or a dictator or an autocrat. I'm not saying that at all. Brutus is a good man. All I am saying is that Donald Trump has now used a tactic, is starting to use a tactic, Mika, that suggests that if you criticize him, you're criticizing America. That's very dangerous. Check the Google machine. You'll understand why.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.